pioneer in this area since she's taken on the workforce issue, which we all know is absolutely crucial. So we look forward to her continuing her good work. Senator Grassley is next.
Thank you for being here, and congratulations on your appointment to this very important position. I'm going to ask some questions about legislation that I've sponsored and how it's being implemented. And so if you don't know the details of that, you can answer in writing, but let me ask you anyway. I'm going to start out with this lead-in. I passed the bipartisan ACE Kids Act with the cooperation of Senator Bennett of this committee. It aligns Medicaid rules and payments to incentivize care coordination, including mental health care for kids with complex medical conditions. This Congress, I'm working with Senator Bennett again to pass the Accelerating Kids Access to Care to streamline access to out-of-state providers for these same kids and their families. My question is this. The Accelerating Kids Access to Care builds onto the ACE Kids law that's now on the books by cutting red tape for providers and families. As a healthcare provider, is access to an out-of-state provider a challenge for families who have children with complex medical needs? And let me add a second question so you can answer them both at one time. How important is it that a child have mental health support services coordinated with their physical health?
Well, Senator, thank you for that question and for your leadership on this issue. I couldn't agree with you more that we need to reduce the barriers to people getting care, including from out-of-state providers. One of the things that we saw during the pandemic was that there were emergency measures that were put in place that allowed people to essentially provide care across state lines, and that also allowed for the greater use and adoption of telemedicine. I think we shouldn't go back on some of those measures. I think the more we're able to ensure that people can get care from wherever they need, whether it's in their state or out of state, the better kids will be. And finally, this is not just about children, it's about their families. As you know better than most, Senator, from the work you have done, when kids have complex medical conditions, that creates certain stresses for the family at large. That's not always easy for parents to handle while also juggling their jobs. We've got to make this easier for parents, not harder, and allowing those families to be able to get the best quality care wherever it is a key part of that process.
Thank you for that. In my state of Iowa and even some states further west that are less populated, mental health in rural areas is a very important thing. So I want to ask about rural youth. Your 53-page youth mental advisory mentions youth in rural areas, that they are at higher risk of mental health challenges as they may face additional challenges in participating in school or access to mental health services. The advisory does not speak to specific resources for youth living in rural America. Could you explain why that might not be included? And maybe give me a short answer to that so I can ask for a longer answer on my last question.
Oh, sure, Senator. Well, the advisory by nature, these are limited documents that are intended to call out challenges and lay out actions that people can take. You are absolutely right that we need more resources for youth in rural areas. There are some governmental resources that are under development, like the 988 hotline. There are private platforms like Crisis Text Line, which currently serve many youth in rural areas. But this is one of the disparities in health that I'm worried about, is that in rural areas, it is harder for children to get the care they need.
Okay. My last question, I helped pass the Seeding Rural Resilience Act with Senator Tester. The law requires the U.S. Department of Agriculture to work with HHS, including the Surgeon General, to raise mental health awareness among farmers and ranchers. Can you work with your USDA colleagues to ensure that this effort is developing as urgently as possible and report back to me?
Yes, Senator, I would be happy to do that.
I think I'll submit the rest of my questions for answer in writing.